Good evening and welcome to the budget workshop. It is April 10th, 2023. It is 5:30 p.m. And Bruce, would you like to kick us off?
Certainly. Thanks for everybody for being here. This, of course, is our first budget workshop. Tonight we're going to be looking at primarily the general fund. And we're doing things a little bit differently this year. In the past, you know, we've kind of always gone through line by line the operating budget for each department, every little detail just about whatever's changed in each department. This year we're doing it differently because we're trying to focus more on capital. Operating really doesn't change a whole lot over year by year. There are obviously some adjustments, you know, for different needs and whatever may happen, but primarily what our biggest needs to discuss is capital. We're going to look at capital items. We're going to look at the bigger capital projects, you know, streets and buildings and stuff like that. But first, I was wanting Tanya to kind of go over the revenues and the expenditures for general fund, just kind of give a brief overview of the revenues, what we've changed and what we're looking at as far as revenues over expenditures, and then we can start talking about the capital items. I've asked the department heads to come up when we get to their department to kind of explain what they're asking for, why they need it, that sort of thing. And then once we go through all of those items, and we can certainly, any questions or answers in the meantime or afterwards, we can talk about those. And then, you know, we would need to look at the bigger capital projects. We have a lot of major projects that we need to discuss. We need to set priorities for those projects as far as what order they need to be done so that we can figure out how we're going to fund these projects. Kyle has put a lot of work into that portion of it, and so we'll have hopefully a good discussion about that. Any questions before we get started? Okay, Tanya, you want to start with revenues and expenditures for the operating budget?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to say a few things about it before we start going in each department. The operating budget is usually based on prior years and trends. And so we've adjusted every department for specific things. So you'll see a rise in those, so we won't have to mention them. Our health costs have gone up. We've adjusted for that. Fuel costs have gone up. You'll see an adjustment in every department for that. We did a wage increase of 3% or one step. That's where the salaries are right now. And we also budgeted for the 457 match, which was not in last year's budget. So you'll see those changes in every department. So we won't really point those out. And a reminder that what you're looking at that we're going over is operating only. You won't see the capital items on this budget. We'll add those later once you approve what you'd like to be in the capital. And keep in mind that there might be minor changes from what you're looking at tonight to the first reading of the budget ordinance, because we'll have payrolls in the meantime and we'll have small changes here and there, so it might be minor changes. So I'm going to point out just significant changes. So if I'm going too quickly or you have questions, just stop me and we'll go over the questions that you have. So if you'll turn to your revenue, the main things we changed on revenue is our property tax. We budgeted $8.6 million, and we based that on the assessed value that we get from the county. The next major change we had was our local sales tax. We increased that to $14.5 million, and we increased that based on our prior and current year tax collections.
I do want to say one thing with this, and I said it before the meeting, but if you look at 1920 to where we are now projecting, that's $4.5 million increase. For me, it's a team effort, but I've got to definitely point out economic development with all the retail coming in as a growth for that. So thank you to Tom and his team.
Okay, and going down to state sales tax, we also increased that to 4 million based on the trends that we see across the last few years. And that was the large changes we made in revenue. If you'll go to your totals page, you'll see that our total revenue we're projecting is $31,637,120. Our expenditures total is $28,713,092. So as it stands right now, we have a $2.9 million surplus that will be used for increased operating or capital items and whatever you choose to use that for. Any questions on revenue? Okay. The legislative board, there weren't any significant changes to that, so we're going to move past that unless you have questions. The judicial board, the same, no significant changes. City court, there were no significant changes. If I go too fast and you have a question, just stop me. The city administrator was basic operating, no significant changes on that one. City recorder, no significant changes on that one. We did make a change this year. You'll see that we've combined finance and tax together, so that's all one department on our budget now. The only thing that you might notice that was significant on that, I'm just going to point out on line item 259, you'll notice that it dropped from 316,000 to 110. We did not have to rebudget for the full appraisal for property tax for this year, so that's why there's a change in that. Questions on that one?
I do. Wages and salaries went significantly down. Is that correct? $111?
Until I moved in the new position, Phyllis and I were both salary.
Okay.
Nicole is not salary, so now I'm the only salary person in the department, and that's why salary is that much. Any other questions? Okay. Human resources, no significant changes there. Questions on that? Engineering, no significant changes there. Information technology, there were no significant changes there. Any questions on that one? Planning, there were no significant changes on planning. Codes, no significant changes on codes. City Hall, no changes on that. Census, pretty regular. Police, no significant changes. You'll notice that we did not rebudget any of the capital items in the 900 line items because we'll be discussing those during the capital. Same with fire, no significant changes. Except for we did not rebudget the capital. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Except for what?
The capital items, the 900s, object codes. Okay, highways and streets, no significant changes there. Fleet. Culture is just our nonprofit we have in there. Parks and Rec. No significant changes there. Library, no significant changes in library, except the ones we talked about at the beginning. Economic development, no significant changes there. Public relations, the same. Then we have our budgeted debt service. Hopefully you've had time to look over that. And we just have our regular transfers. Then you still have a copy of the nonprofits in the back. I just wanted to put a reminder out there, if you have any you want to see presentations on, just email me so I can get those scheduled for the 24th. And we did put, we went ahead and just put the numbers from 22, 23 in this current budget, and we'll adjust them to what's actually approved. But we put those in there so we would have some numbers in the department, so it wouldn't be something we'd have to budget after.
Tanya, I did want to hop back over real quick to
Okay.
economic development.
Okay?
944, budget for this year is 0. Looks like the last 2 years we're at 30,000 and 35.
Those are vehicles.
Their vehicle, okay, just says transportation.
I was gonna get my notes. That answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
So Bruce, on the nonprofit for the, particularly the school things, are we at liberty to ask whomever we would like to come up, like a principal or a school board member or something?
You could, I mean, these would typically be represented by the people making the request, but you could certainly talk to whoever, you know, have them come up, whoever you want to come up to talk about these different groups.
Would that be, would that be something, Tanya, that we need to get their emails and send it to you, or ask them directly?
Steve, I've already reached out to the school board members, asking them to be in attendance, as well as a couple of our county commissioners that represent Laverne.
Okay, all right.
And if you want to invite anyone else, whether it's like the director of schools or the principals, whatnot, just reach out to their email, ask them to attend. There's items within their purview.
So I don't need to send their email, I don't need to send it over to Tanya.
But Tanya, I would say for me, all of the Laverne High School, the band boosters, the wrestling, the softball, I would like to see them, as well as the United Way,
Okay,
all here.
okay.
Did we ever hear back from CASA or the Chief of Police Association?
We heard back from the Chief of Police Association. They have a new person, and she indicated that she didn't know that the city even donated. And we went back and looked in our records, and the last time they even requested their nonprofit that had been approved was in 1920. So they
1920?
19.
No,
2020.
the budget year, 2019, 2019.
I age well.
Now Glenn thought you said the same thing, didn't he?
I did too.
We were making donations
I
before we
don't
were a
feel-
city.
Yeah.
So I don't feel so bad.
But anyway, I went back and forth with her 2 or 3 times and told her what we needed, and she was very confused at what we needed. We never got any response from, what's the other one, TP?
CASA,
No, the TP,
oh, the Public Safety Network.
yeah. We didn't get anything from them, and then on the Association of Chief of Police, she said the only thing she knows that they get from the city is the dues and membership and stuff like that, so.
No, we do not have anything for CASA either. I haven't got any paperwork for them.
Okay.
That's all I have, unless you have more questions.
Carol, Dennis, Steve?
So we do need to email you who we'd like to see, not sit here and talk about it right now.
Correct. We're gonna do that on the 24th.
I got you.
That gives me time to get everybody notified and ask them to
Okay.
come.
Gotcha.
And I do have the packets that they sent, if you wanted to look at them, not
Please.
for any reason.
So is that it for this evening?
It's all for mine.
Bruce?
Any other questions about operating at all? Okay, we'll go into this small sheet. It's about 8 pages long. This is the capital item list that's been compiled from the various requests that we've received from our departments. There's several sections. They're separated by funds as well. First page there is the general fund. The first 4 items listed there are remaining fiscal year 2022-23. These are items that have already been approved, have already been ordered, and we hope to have delivered and completed before the end of June this year. So those are items that are remaining in this current fiscal year. The next section there is carryover items from fiscal year 22-23. These are items that we're going to have to carry over into next year's budget because these are items that have either been ordered or approved by the board, whatever the case may be, that we're not going to receive before the end of June. So we have to rebudget for all of these items into next year's budget. So as you can see, the total number there for 23-24 is $11,799,611. Obviously, the vast majority of that is Fire Station 41, which is the construction of that new facility there that's being paid for out of bond proceeds. If you'll notice on the police department, the police station expansion, we have put that project on hold because we're going to wait until we have a new police chief in place. And then we want to give that chief, at least a year before we start moving forward with that project any further.
And Bruce, if you don't mind, when it comes to whether it's fire stations or police expansion, each new chief kind of has their own opinions and spins. If you remember Fire Station 41, Ricky McCormick had his vision for it. Then Chief Clark came in and he had slightly different version of it, and Chief Beasley has come in and has had a different version and changes for it. So it's only fair to allow whoever's going to be the new chief to have that input in with that.
I think that's a good idea.
So obviously, we're going to wait on that until probably the next fiscal year, 24-25. So then we get into the new capital requests for each department that have been requested. And since City Recorder Department is first, I'll go ahead and explain that one. I've asked for a public records request tracking system, which the initial cost is $12,600. This is a system that would be on our website where people could submit public records requests. It's pretty simple. It's a very good system. It's a good way to ensure we're meeting the deadlines, that we're making sure we have everything that's supposed to be submitted back to the requester in a timely manner. As you can imagine, with recent events, our information requests have just exploded. They've been going up year by year anyway, but they have tripled or more within the last few months. So we
Juliet,
really
is that
need a
true?
better system in place.
Juliet, is that true? Have they been increasing?
It's been very difficult to keep up with everything. So this is a system that will help us move forward and do a better job of keeping up with all of these different requests. And that's really all that we're asking for this year for City Recorder Department. I'm not going to go into items in future years, and I'm asking department heads to do the same. We're just going to focus on what's being requested for 23-24. So next would be, and there's nothing for finance in 23-24. So the next one up would be human resources. So if Andrew wants to come up and explain his Leadership Development Academy.
Good evening, everybody. Last year and this year, we've been talking about how to have a focus on succession planning, future goals. So much of what we do on a day-to-day basis is sort of head down 5,000-foot level, and how do we get to a 60,000-foot level for planning? And so we've talked about retreats, we've talked about things that we could do in the fall of this year, And one of the things that I'm working towards is a leadership academy. One that would be separate from the leadership training that myself and my department does on an ongoing basis, but would be an outside source, almost like a certification process that we could take leaders within our city and say, hey, we want to put you through a program to raise the bar on your planning ability, your people skills, all of the sort of soft skills that come when you promote somebody to a leader role, that we could have a program that we could do that for. And so I've been in conversation with a number of different people, one that I'm sort of honing in on. That's where the number comes from. I'd love to get this launched in the next fiscal year, because I think for a lot of our new supervisors, new managers that are coming into various departments with no managerial experience, the greatest growth area for retention is to make sure those leaders know how to manage people well. And this is the focus of what that program would be.
100% agree. Many of our directors and managers are working managers, meaning they
Right.
come right up through it,
Right.
and they have the technical know-how, but the people skills need to be refined.
Yep. And it's not something that you can always just assume everybody knows how to do. So there's some skill sets that can be taught along that way. This money would probably cover about 6 people a year going through a program like that.
Who picks those out? You?
No, I wouldn't want to be the sole person for that. I would love input from all the directors, like who's the rising leaders in your department that you see as the next supervisor, or somebody that's a brand new supervisor that you want to put towards this program. And I think it would be a consensus among all the directors.
Will that be just a one-time thing, or you gonna try to do it annually?
Annually would be fantastic. I don't have it as a recommended after this fiscal year, simply because we want to see what the process is. I don't want to budget for it for 3 years out and realize that, it didn't necessarily work. So it was a one-time opportunity, and if it works well, then obviously I'll be back in front of you and we'll try to renew it.
So just to use it and then evaluate it for ROI.
Correct.
Are you looking at bringing in an outside entity? I'm sorry, I stepped out, so I don't know if you were
Yes,
asked
it would
that.
be an outside. The one thing I mentioned is myself and my department, we do regular leadership development with our senior leaders. This would be a program for the up-and-coming leaders, and it would be an outside facilitator that would handle that process.
Okay.
Thank you, Andrew.
You're welcome.
Okay, next on the list is City Hall buildings, which I'll take this one as well. The request is to pave and stripe the City Hall parking lots and the drives. I've been here going on 30 years. I don't believe we've ever paved the parking lots or the driveways in that amount of time. This building's been here approximately 40 years. So it's obviously time. There's a lot of, cracks and potholes and dips and stuff like that need to be fixed. The lines obviously are hard to see in the parking spaces. So I had asked David to get some estimates to do that. With the paving and the striping, we estimate that it'll be around $210,000. Obviously, it's going to be dependent on the paving cost at the time, because that always fluctuates. But that's what we're shooting for there. Is there any questions about that item?
Yes. So that's this front parking lot,
Yes, sir.
and is it the entire back parking lot?
Yes, sir.
Is it behind police station?
PD, yes, sir.
Okay, and then how much of Bicentennial Park?
I believe it's everything multi-purpose coming forward.
Okay, so CID,
Dave, is that correct?
Yes, sir, it's gonna catch everything from the far edge of the multipurpose forward, so we're not gonna go any past the far side of the building. It's gonna catch like this little horseshoe here, come behind CID, catch all of that.
No questions, but a comment. So it's 30 years?
Well, this building's been here 40. I'm guessing it hasn't been paved since it was originally done. The police department building was built in 1989. So obviously that parking lot back there hasn't been done since then.
Wow, that's a long time.
It is. Any other questions? Okay. Next is police department. So Chief, if you can come up and talk about your 3 items there.
Good evening. So you see three things on that capital. The first is the body-worn cameras, and we're asking for 80 cameras with the 5-year unlimited cloud storage. And you're looking at $672,100 for that. Getting into the 21st century policing, it's apparent that this is an essential part of what we do. Transparency, and getting the real-time footage from the officer actually on the incident versus just what you see on a dash cam video. The second is 10 replacement patrol vehicles. This again is just through attrition because of the ages of the cars. We just have to keep continually pressing to get more. We have some unmarks for our crime suppression unit that need to be replaced. They're all 13s. So we just need to make sure that we have, again, a fleet that's what we need for our support and be able to effectively do our jobs. And then the last is the replacement of 24 bulletproof vests, which is $15,600, and that's matched with we have a grant for that as well. So this is our half of that grant. Every 5 years, we have to replace those vests. Any questions?
So Chief, with these body-worn cameras, I've seen numerous videos on the internet of all different kinds. Are these ones that the officer has the ability to turn off and on, or have we settled on any one specific type at this point?
We're going with the Panasonic since we already have the Panasonic dash cam system, so it's going to be integrated.
Okay, and then will these be ones that they can control, turning on, turning off, or how will that work?
It's going to have both. It'll have an automatic system. When the lights go on, it'll automatically trigger. And I believe that there's going to be an opportunity for them to be able to turn it off, but that can be overridden. So.
Okay. And then we'll have
policy,
training with
yeah.
them as well about this, because we
Oh,
want to make
absolutely.
sure
Everybody
we're as
will be-
transparent with it as possible.
Everybody will be 100% trained on these things, and the policies will be robust.
Wonderful.
I like the idea. I think it protects the police, and I think it protects the citizens
I agree.
at the same time. Been a long time coming.
We're getting there.
Thank you, Chief.
Man, who
next.
put all this candy up here?
Chief Beasley.
Next is the fire department.
Frazier.
Pull out the glass.
Look at them glasses.
You like that, don't you? Well, thank y'all for entertaining me tonight and being willing to listen. As you can see, we started off, we do have several items coming in requests this year. Start with, we are going to reengage in our special operations team, and part of that and the basis of everything we do is hazardous material response. OSHA requires that we have a baseline physical at the beginning of their hazardous material career or part of their career, and then annual, every 2 years, have a physical to revisit that to make sure that we're still at that same level of health and there's no adverse impacts of the exposure to hazardous material. I based that price at $18,000. We based it on the previous physicals estimates that we had for the Brady screenings that we're now getting taken care of through Premise Healthcare. So that's roughly $18,000, our request for that. You can second item will be to repair the back driveway at Fire Station 2. Our concrete is not quite as old as the asphalt here at City Hall, but it is failing tremendously. It's about to turn into a gravel driveway. Our estimate on that was $30,000. We're going to begin a hose replacement program based on the NFPA standards, telling us that we need to at least have a program in place. There is no actual deadline or end of life of fire hose. As long as it passes annually, it's still good. But the hose that we use more often is at greater risk. So for the safety of firefighters, we're going to begin that program and replacing hose. That would be the end of the 22-23 replacements. You can see that we have quite a few other items that are in the future, in the 23-24 and beyond. Do y'all have any questions about any of that?
Ronnie, it says repair back driveway for Fire Station 42.
Yes,
But
sir.
what about that big area in the front that's basically turning to gravel as well?
where it drops off. That is the entire area, if I'm not mistaken. It's for the entire parking lot. The greatest big part of the project's the back.
Okay.
But those pieces in the front are going to be a part of that project as well.
Okay, because that, it looks very bad and it's just gonna keep getting worse.
It's going to continue to get worse.
So, but that would be
Yes, sir.
included in this?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What do you do with the old hoses?
Gov deals, or we'll use it internally.
People
but-
buy them?
Yes, sir. People like this, they make billfolds out of them.
Really?
They make anything in the world.
I would think could smaller stations or volunteer groups buy them and use
Yes, sir.
them?
Volunteer, fire departments will come in and grab it up at a pretty inexpensive price. But again, there's no shelf life or end of life date on fire hoses. As long as it annually passes, you're good. But those hose, the smaller diameter hose we use more frequently is at greater risk. 10 years is the point where they want you to start having a program, and we're at that point. Unfortunately, with the wisdom of the board at the time to purchase the fire department, we purchased a whole lot of new items all at the same time. And so to eliminate trying to purchase a whole bunch of stuff as shelf life ends or end of life ends, we're trying to increase into that so we're not hitting city capital budget in a one big lump sum. And most items have a 10 or a 15-year end of life on them in the fire service.
So just staggering the purchases?
Sir,
Just staggering the purchases?
we're going to try to best our plan, do the best we can to plan to stagger those purchases throughout the years.
Glenn?
Kyle, you going to time me out tonight with the clock? He did it tonight on the screen. I do like this format. It keeps me in the box and keeps me from standing up here for an hour and a half.
I can get a bell if you want.
Sir?
I can get a bell if you
Ding, ding,
want.
ding, ding, ding.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
The one item that we have not talked about on there is the fire training facility, the property purchase. At some point, we're going to have to start negotiating with the property owner on the land for the training facility. We obviously don't know the cost at this point, so it's hard to put that in a budget. So I just wanted to mention that in passing.
Is that the church property?
It's across the street from where they're building the new station. Yes, sir, behind the property that we already own.
Right.
We own a 1.2 acres, roughly,
Yeah.
sitting on the front, on the road frontage, and then everything behind it. I think it's a total of 6+ acres over there that we're trying to consider. That's a key to retaining that ISO number, that ISO 2. It would be very difficult for us to continue to recreate the facilities and use training and get those credit points for that, depending on somebody else for their facilities.
So, not being negative, just
No, let's not do that.
being realistic, have we got a plan B in case?
I mean, there's other pieces of property that we could look at that may or may not be as ideal a location. Obviously, this one is more centrally located to the city compared to some of the other locations, but we'll just take it piece by piece until we find the right one for the best benefit of the city.
And that's the goal, is to look for something that's centrally located. That way, if you're pulling from station 42, 43, everyone's pulled towards the center versus everyone pulled towards 43, and then there's, a medical emergency over at McFarland Point. Well, then it takes even longer to get to.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, and I understand, but I'm just,
Yeah.
We do have some other possible locations, but this is the main one that we want to try for first.
gotcha.
And as you can see in next year's budget, we're not going to talk about it, but they've got $1 million listed for construction of that facility. So there again, it's all dependent on if and when we can purchase the property as to when we can move forward with the construction.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
No, thank you.
Next, we have the street department. So Dietz, if you want to come up and explain all of those.
Mayor, Board, thank you. For street department, we essentially have 5 requests for this fiscal year. First one starting with the bucket truck. That is a 25-year-old unit, probably should have been replaced a few years ago. So we're asking to purchase a new bucket truck. Total on that is gonna be roughly $200,000. Next line item is the hot mix trailer. That essentially just for toting asphalt around. Right now, if we go out and make patches, whether it be potholes and/or repairs after a water break, we can only tote about 10 tons in our dump truck, and that's difficult to work with in itself because once that starts getting cool, it's tough to push around. So this would give us the ability to where if we don't use it all in one day, we can hook right back up to it tomorrow, and it is still hot and movable, so we can work with it. Next line item down will be an F-150 pickup truck. This is just essentially replacing an aging unit, one of our service trucks. Next would be a Line Laser 3400. This will be used to strike parking lots. The mayor's smiling. I pulled in out here and I said I know exactly what he means because I couldn't see the lines when I pulled in with my little video truck. So hopefully that would be something that we'd have to learn and get some training on, but I think that we could use that throughout the city at a lot of our buildings, could use striping or touch them up. The last one is a paving plan. This is something we would like to request. This could increase or decrease by $50,000. But essentially this is hiring a consultant to come in and assess all of our city streets throughout the city, current condition, age, et cetera. Provide us a 10, 15, possibly even a 20-year plan. Not only will that give us a plan to work off of for years to come, but it will also help us with budgeting from year to year. Right now, we kind of piecemeal things together. I feel like we're doing a good job, and we'll talk about that later when we get to the streets that we're going to pave, but I think a designated plan we would all benefit from greatly.
So, couple questions here. With the bucket truck, it says in here it's a 400-day lead time.
Yes, sir, that's correct. 400-day lead time, so just over a year. So we would be, it would probably push over into the next year, to be completely honest with you. The possibility's there.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask is will this most likely be 24, 25 versus 23, 24? What's your oldest year vehicle currently for your trucks?
I would say probably right around that 25-year mark, but I can't confirm that, but right around 25 years. That bucket truck and a
Not for your bucket truck, for all your.
yes, sir,
besides your-
F-250 is a 99 model as well, so.
So you got a 99, okay.
Yes, sir.
And then the parking or the painting of parking lines, that's one I've asked for. It's, I've seen demonstrations of different ones, and I think just doing it in-house would be more cost-effective and timely than contracting, bidding, that whole process out, and, being at their mercy, because we've already seen how Sessions has done with even paving.
Absolutely, yes, sir. We could definitely get on to it sooner.
So we went over this last year, pickups and vehicles like police and stuff, they still,
I asked Thomas weekly to reach out to Fort of Murfreesboro, and we get the same answer, no ETA. We're hoping to get SUVs in. We actually got one in today. We should receive it next week, which is Jim Owen's SUV. So that's promising. However, we're hoping for those and the F-150 pickup trucks, but they're not guarantees either. It's just supply chain issues early on with COVID. We're still hearing that. And then the demand is so high, they can't get them all built. It's just, and they're telling us that this is going to be 3 to 5 years before we see a resolution on this.
really.
Yes, sir.
Is that the same thing with your situation, Chief?
Yes, sir, it is.
I would also say plan for some, I want to say almost fluff, but inflation fluff.
Oh, yeah.
With the trucks. I was listening to some talk radio, and they're talking about how new vehicles, just basic, very basic, not these types, are pushing 48,000, 50,000. So if we're budgeting 50, we may go over that slightly.
We run into that this past fiscal year.
Right, we had to make some adjustments to what we had already budgeted versus what the final costs were. Some of the holdover items that you'll see on the first page, we had to adjust several of those costs.
So if the city locks in on a pickup or a car or whatever, they lock in on that and they don't get it for 2 years, does it go up or is it,
And once we order it, it should be locked in.
okay,
Yep.
Then we hope and pray it's delivered.
I understand.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, next will be Parks and Recreation. David has a few items this year.
Board, thank you. We've got about 5 things for you. First, you can see is a scissor lift. We're requesting to purchase that. This building here, multipurpose library, some of the buildings we go in, change light bulbs, ballast. It's awful high for a guy to be standing on a ladder. Not real comfortable with that, and never been real crazy about them getting up that high. All it would take is one fall, so we're requesting that. And then you see the hydraulic scissor lift trailer. Actually, it kind of surprised us when that was priced higher than the lift itself, but that's the same thing. It folds.
I just seen that.
Yeah, it drops down flat, roll right on it, so we could use it for many different things across the city. Push stuff with pallet jack up on it, so it does roll down, it does drop flat. That'll come in handy there. Both of those two are priced through the purchasing program, so those won't have to go out for bid. At the time we priced those were in stock. There wasn't a wait time on those. Third item there is metal roofing on the dugouts, $20,000. It's kind of what it cost us to do the front dugouts. The front 8 on the first complex have been done, so we'd like to do the back complex to match those. The backs are shingled now. The roof for the multipurpose building, that's estimated at $36,000. That is a metal roof to go on that. And then the 5th item we have for you guys is the pavilions at the park, A and B, wrap the wood and the eaves and the fascia with metal. Any questions?
David, let me ask y'all this as far as with the regards to the dugouts and as well as the park pavilions. Do we have any corporate sponsorships of those, to slap their name on them? I know we do over at Mencken Park. We've got, the bridge, this pavilion was brought to you by Bridgestone, but, that may help defer some of the taxpayer cost if these corporations and to put some type of plaque or metal sign that recognizes what they're doing on there, isn't necessarily a huge expense to us, but it may be something they're interested in.
Right, and I don't know how we would go about reaching out to them, if that would be our department, if that would be the PIO. I don't know who responsibility that would fall on. We can definitely look into it. We reach out to sponsors for our events right now, so we don't mind trying to double dip, but if we get some good sponsors, we don't want to hit them up for everything, but there is a lot of sponsorship money out there. I just don't know who would take the lead on that or what department. Definitely wouldn't want 2 or 3 people doing the same work of one. So I guess it would be up to us somehow to designate who's going to spearhead that.
Bruce, can you and Ann and David all sit down and have a discussion? Because, again, this may be an opportunity to help save payers money.
That's a good idea.
And it gets exposure for the businesses that are local to contribute back to our community.
Yes, sir, we can certainly sit down and look into that.
David, I noticed that you don't have anything on here until next year for dog park equipment. You
Yes,
knew
sir.
I was gonna bring that up when I seen it.
Yes, sir. And that came up in our budget talks, and I told them you were gonna bring that up.
Well,
It came down to, what do we feel like we have to have now, and what do we feel like we could possibly push out another year?
well, I don't think the dog park is a have to.
Right.
That's a no-brainer, but I think that with the nice park, the fire hydrants, well, that was Bruce's idea, but Michael followed it up. I think that was a good plus, but I'd really, really like to see some,
Yeah, and I know where your head's at, because we'd like to see some other stuff over there also, but we'd like to propose it now. Can we come in under 25 grand? Probably, but we don't want to take away from needs that somebody else needs. We could definitely use another mower now, but we thought we can get by with what we have, so let's push that out. I know when the dog park was first built, that was the idea, to have some equipment in there. Be honest with you, we really haven't had any negative feedback about it not being equipped with stuff. So,
So this fall, the Boyd Foundation is supposed to have a grant opening for equipment, just so that you're aware. That would,
How long does that take to get that?
well, it takes a little bit, a few months to get it, but then actually, I mean, doing the work, that's just a check, and it's a partnership with Lowe's, from what Mr. Boyd was saying just a couple weeks ago. And so that should, once we get the money, it should go pretty quickly if we're awarded the grant. That's supposed to be opening this fall. And then I do know, because I've had a conversation with this lady, this is something small that's coming to the dog park, or potentially could, is some of the Girl Scouts want to put 2 bins there with dog treats for the dogs, and they're going to handle supplying them and making sure they're properly stocked. That will be coming before the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee this month.
And you know, when you first initially mentioned that to me, I'm thinking, yeah, that's a great idea. But then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what if somebody dogs gets one of these treats and gets sick? You know, that's kind of stuff I think about.
And listen, I'm right there with you. I guess I've been up here long enough that that guy, old Richardson's starting to rub off on me. Try to err on the
Good, I'm glad to hear that.
You don't want to do
Trying to-
ice skating,
Axe throwing on rollerblades.
trying to err on the side of caution, but at the same time, Michael, just not to bring you in this, but do we ever get like just some big pipes that we don't use? We can just lay them out there somehow and anchor them. It's not gonna cost any money, or just,
Not that size, no, sir. I don't think we have anything that size.
I just know that when the weather gets really nice and people start bringing their puppies out there, they're gonna be wanting, at least if I'm talking about it, I can give them
Right.
an answer instead of just.
And I mean, we can price some of that. I know what you're talking about, like the big black pipes that are pretty much plastic. And, yeah, corrugated, we made, who said that?
Eats.
Corrugated, thank you for the help. Yeah, we could definitely look into that. We may have some money left in this budget. But, yeah, I don't know, initially on the dog treats, thought that was a great idea. I just don't, I'm kind of like you now, like, I don't know. Would I give my pet something there and take a chance? I don't know if that would be setting us up later down the road for something else, I'm not sure.
Just something to think about on down the line, next year or the next year. Some of the parks, like in Smyrna and Murfreesboro, have the covers for the bleachers and stuff. Maybe look into something like that, or if there's a grant to have the covers, because with games being, on Saturdays and stuff, the shade would be very helpful.
Yeah, we definitely will. I know it's been looked into before in the past, it just never got moved forward. So yeah, we'll definitely revisit that.
David, you said on the multipurpose building, you're going with you want to go with a metal roof?
On the multipurpose building, that's what we have priced out, was a metal roof, yes, sir.
Why are you going with the metal instead of shingles?
Well, we'd kind of like it to match, we redid the pavilion over here, the Bicentennial Pavilion several years ago. We'd kind of like to go with the metal just because the upkeep, and it seems if there's any damage, shingles, if a storm come through, you're always gonna have shingle damage. Very seldom have I ever seen any metal damage, unless the roof just gets completely ripped off. Longevity, durability, I think in the long run, the upfront cost would outweigh itself. And I would think even a building that size, to shingle a roof that size, you're probably nowadays looking at well over 20 grand anyway. You probably used to could do it for 6 or 7. I don't think you can do that anymore.
And that's always been shingled back there?
As far as I know, yes, sir.
Okay, just making sure it's not like the linoleum carpeting
No, it's
carpeting
all-
we've done on the inside.
It's been shingles. I don't know, there may be 2 layers on it right now, but, so I don't know if that would have to be bid out, that project. So we could work that into the specs as a total rip-off. If it's 2 layers or more, if it's 1, they should be able to go right on top of it, I would think.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, next is library or Glenn, Donna, whichever one wants to talk about the computers.
Glenn, you probably know.
Boy, she was all over that, wasn't she?
Come on up, Glenn.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, these are, we had the grant this year that we got the 35 computers for the public side. This would be the ones for the, not the staff in the back desk, we handle those as a city, but the staff desks that are in the front, in the public part. So it'd be the circulation desk, the reference desk, the children's desk, that sort of thing. There's like 4 at the circulation desk, 5 at the circulation desk, 2 at the reference desk, 1 at the children's desk. So this would cover those, I think, what did I say, Donna, 8? How many did I initially tell you? Yes. So that would, then that, everything from the public-facing side would be covered and done. And there would be, we'd apply for the grant again on those, so that would be, this would be, what did you put in here, Donna? Was this the total I gave you, or was this? 14,000. Okay, so we would get half that back.
Okay.
How long does it take to get them grants?
They, within a year, I think we apply for them in the, well, when did, the one came in this past fall? When they came down and awarded it? And so we had applied that same year in the springtime, so it's generally within the same calendar year. It's from the state, it's the state library archives.
One of the things that they like is as far as that you're using them versus just letting the grant money sit and expire, so.
It has a usage date.
Yes, all the grants do, so if you don't use them, you lose them.
I got you.
Welcome, welcome, no
You
puppets.
did great, thank you. He did the technical
mouse?
side of it. It's a
Andrew has the mouse.
Andrew's
No.
got the mouse?
It's a 50-50, nope, no mouse tonight. 50-50 match, and we received 17,000 and some dollars. And so this year, of course, we had 34,500 in the small items of equipment, and that's where Glenn has purchased the computers for the patrons, and those are already in. They are in the history room right now, waiting to be installed, so we have those in. And I believe the invoice has already been turned in.
Yes, Joseph has it to pay, and he knows to give it to Kamisha. And I let Kamisha know that it's there, so I think she has to wait for the check to clear, because I think she has to turn that in as part of with the invoice and everything. But yeah, once that check clears, then she'll turn that in and we'll get that 50% back, so.
And so that would be the same way with this. We did ask for 14,000, so it would be, we will ask for 7,000, correct?
From the grant?
For this, the grant for this one,
Yes.
yes. So we would ask for 7,000, and then we would have to do the 50-50 match. So we would get 7,000 back. And they usually start the grant process the beginning of the fiscal year, and then we should be able to get that awarded, hopefully, in November.
What are you looking at, Dell's? Are you looking at Dell computers?
Lenovo.
Lenovo, okay, okay.
What is it?
Pretty much Lenovo. They used to be IBM, I think.
Different manufacturer.
Not sure who owns them now.
What's he saying?
Lenovo.
Lenovo, Lenovo.
Never heard of it.
Tanya has one right there, a laptop version.
Yeah.
But that's all the ones you see in City Hall now, all the flat screens where the computer's built into the back. There's no tower, it's a small computer that slides in the back. So there's no wiring on the floor, no towers, none of that. It's all self-contained in one unit, so you don't have
Wrong way.
things that people can pick up and take away and things like that, so.
Because we have had to
chain and lock certain things at the library. We had a person who actually unhooked the tower and had it stuffed in his backpack.
This big,
Uh-huh.
this big and that wide.
Seriously.
And I had someone come up and say, I can't get on the card catalog. It's like it's not working. And I go back there and the tower's missing. And it just so happened the guy had just taken it. And I looked over and I said, what you got? And he said, oh, yeah. Here
Oh,
go.
you caught him.
Yeah, we got it.
How did it get in his coat, did he say? Or
He
in his
didn't
backpack?
say.
Hopefully you got to have a fun conversation with them afterwards.
He was out of there lickety-split, did call dispatch, and I don't think they ever saw him.
Donna was getting all redneck.
But we had a mouse to go missing. There goes the mouse again, but it was the other kind of mouse,
Check with Andrew.
not Miss Mousy.
He has a fondness of mice.
So Glenn came over and locked us down, and we haven't had any problems since. But we are looking forward to the other ones that will be easier.
Okay.
We also installed a camera back there too. So,
Okay.
any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Donna.
Thank you, and thank you, Glenn.
Okay, that's the end of our non-recurring capital requests. As you can see there, the cost there for 23-24 is $2,507,000. The next section is our new requests that are of a recurring nature, like personnel requests, things like that. So the first one on this list is back to Human Resources with HR generalist position. Andrew, you want to come talk about that, please? And how you're going to do that, or how you plan to do that?
I've been hiding in the back with talk of mice. So one of the things that I have been thinking about is how our team serves the employee population. Right now, we have, 284 total employees, 263 for full-time employees. And, that works out to be about 97 employees for each HR person that we have. So an attempt to lower that and to gain some additional expertise on some areas that I'd like to see growth on, I'm asking for a new full-time generalist role. Somebody that can be, I always describe, there's specialty roles in HR, people that only do, one function. Last year, we added an employee engagement role. That's a specialist role. A generalist is that person who is responsible for knowledge on all HR functions and can kind of plug and play into any role. What Bruce was referring to of how I was going to do that is a spatial question, which is a valid question. I don't have a full solution yet, but I have some ideas of how we could restructure the entry office into HR. And then, once Public Works opens, we'll lose some headcount from City Hall to Public Works. That will allow some shifting of some departments internally here. Potentially, HR could gain some space from our competition next door in court as they maybe relocate to another spot. So there's some ideas for how that can come in years to come. But I would love to have, at your approval, another opportunity to serve our people that we have well.
And you're gonna put them where? Say it again.
About the same conversation we had earlier today, isn't it?
So you know how our HR suite is laid out? When you suite.
I know how.
That's a fancy term for.
You keep opening these doors, Andrew, and stepping through.
I know how the
I donate the rest of my time to the gentleman from.
I know how the director of HR suite is laid out,
Yes, sir.
but then the efficiency in the front. So
Yes.
again, I'll ask,
Yes. I
put
think
them where?
so. two ideas that I would need flushed out from folks in engineering and building and how all that can happen, which is not my expertise. But as you enter HR, we've got sort of a two-office location. We've got where the HR assistant sits presently, and then the employee engagement administrator's in the back. And you enter the door into the director's office. One idea could be that we could split the director's office, right? The other idea could be is that if that wall is removable between the assistant and the employee engagement administrator, take that down and restructure that desk area to allow 3 working areas. There's not a whole lot of confidential conversations that happen in that front office, and if need be, they usually come into the director's office to do that.
I would say that wall can't come down.
That wall can't?
Is that a low-bearing wall right there?
That's what I was gonna
I
say.
think that used to be a garage area,
Used to be
wasn't
the
it?
Sally Port.
Keyword is load-bearing walls,
Yes,
right?
it's definitely-
Right, Kyle?
It's a wall that won't move, or don't need to come down.
My grandmother used to call that a hook on the wall.
I'll put a hook on the wall and pull it with a pickup truck and see if it comes down.
Well, you know, realistically, if you go in that door into your office and you go back 10 foot and put a petition, that still gives you plenty of room back there for a bigger office. And
You can just go in and out the back.
All of those possibilities exist.
Hey, the good thing is you wouldn't have to have any visitors because you wouldn't have no room.
That's right, no visitors in HR. Ultimately, what I've said to Bruce is I'd love to get this budgeted and approved and then figure out how locations could work.
This could always be something that Public Works isn't, we're looking till what, end of the year or beginning of next? Maybe,
Probably
possibly.
End of next.
Yeah, probably.
So this could
Maybe
be,
June.
this could very easily be something that's approved with, before July, and then you don't have someone until beginning of next year based on space.
All those things are true. We also have there's a space between Kyle's office and tax that we currently use as a storage room. That could be used as a temporary office space until more permanent,
the big broom closet.
where we keep the mice, yes. And the Coke Zeros.
Well, we ain't getting rid of it.
You always reuse the office where the vault's at, right?
It's even smaller than the one in the back, I think.
I don't know if I fully answered your question, Vice Mayor, but
I just wanted to send you down that rabbit hole again while you
Yes.
was up here.
yeah, absolutely. Well sent. I will return now to my rabbit cage in the back of the room.
Say hello to the mice force.
All right, the next position listed is for the police department, a digital evidence technician. Chief?
Kind of tough follow on that. Yes, we are asking for one additional person, and their prime function is going to be a digital evidence technician as we go forward with the body-worn cameras. That's going to be a lot of footage, and we need a dedicated person for that position.
Okay, similar to what was asked by the Vice Mayor to Andrew, but where are you looking at putting this person?
Well,
Your space is tight too, so, in your suite.
Well, we've batted around the idea of having them actually working a different set of hours, so they could share where Kim Chabot sits currently, and utilize the space that way, so we effectively have an evidence technician there for later hours as well. If we have specific crimes go on or something that needs to be logged, they're there and they're available for that as well. So
Okay,
there's a workaround for it.
that's a good idea. Any other questions?
Andrew should have thought of that.
That's right. I was just texting.
All right, next on the list is fire department. They have several requests.
Shocking.
Never surprises me.
There's a resounding theme with places, new employees. I think that you would probably find the same request coming out of fire. However, you'll see the first thing on our list is we have a request for 6 additional firefighters for this next year's budget. That will bring us up to a total of 15 over the last 2 years, which would staff Tower 41, the reserve truck that we have now. the desire or our goal would be to have that truck in service in the center of town. That would bring us up to the NFPA standard of 17 personnel at a one-story house fire, excluding apartments, commercial buildings, which is a number of 23 firefighters on the scene. We'll still be below there, but we would hope to handle our bread and butter operations without a request from our neighbors in Smyrna on a mutual aid request. Those firefighters will be hired in the middle of the year in January, February, be trained and then go online about the time that the new fire station is predicted to be open in May. Any questions on those 6 folks?
I do. Well,
Yes,
you've
sir.
got, first time off, you've got paid through possible fire safer grant. So
Yes, sir.
let's go through that part.
Absolutely. So Kamisha has completed an application with the SAFER grant, which would pay 100% of the salary for the first year, 75% for the second year, and 25% for the third year. It will also pay for their uniforms and personal protective equipment. It'd be the whole firefighter, including benefits. Take a tremendous load off of our budget for sure. If that's awarded, we'll see how that goes. And there's always been some requests or concern in the past how the grants were funded. It has happened in the state of Tennessee where firefighters were hired under these SAFER grants, and in the third year, they chose not to keep them and released them from work. So for this bond, or this grant request would say that we have these people in our budget, barring a catastrophic economic downturn, that they are in our budget. And that's always a concern for the firefighter that's coming in as currently a credentialed firefighter. They are aware of these grants and how they work, and they want to make sure that those people are in our budget 3 years from now, and that they would not have any concern about being released in the 4th year. That has happened in the state of Tennessee. But the language in the grant now is strong enough that it pretty much says that we will be hiring them, and it can, as you as the board, once they're in our budget, they're in our budget.
Bruce, any concerns as far as monetarily, with the way this grant phases it down, us being able to maintain those employees?
No, I just think it's ultimately, it's a commitment that we're making, to fund these for, at least 3 years. Obviously, we don't want to lay anybody off after that if we don't have to, but we know there's a need in the fire department for more firefighters. If we are awarded the grant and get that funding, obviously that's going to help us for those 3 years. And then we just have to plan for the full value, in future years. So it's just a commitment that we're making now over time to continue to fund those positions.
Okay, and then this next part with it, I'm gonna open it up also for Andrew to join us on it.
Bring your mouse with you, buddy.
So Rutherford County is in the process of hiring 75 firefighters. So with us bringing on 6, are we going to be able to properly recruit and retain these employees, facing, we've had competition significantly in the past from Nashville, Smyrna, Murfreesboro, the county. Now it's going to be coming on even more.
Yeah.
We,
And can you tell us where we're going to put these people?
yes, I have a small broom closet.
We have a suite.
Yes, we have a suite. No, the chief and I and my team have had ongoing conversations about recruitment. I think there's a couple things that come into play. Number one, I think most departments are recruiting, right?
Absolutely.
Number two, there are some firefighters that desire a different level of firefighting than is traditionally offered in a municipality of our size.
Yeah.
Is that safe to say?
Bedroom communities.
Right. So some of those issues with loss of an employee is based on, I want to go do this, and I can do that in a county function. I can do that in a larger metropolitan function. I have more opportunity to fight fires or do special operations. There was a meeting that took place today on a recruitment plan moving forward that involved a number of different elements to position Laverne Fire in a place where people would know the values, what they stand for, their opportunities for current hiring and promotion, and the goal is to onboard not only new opportunities for hires, but also to fill slots that are currently open. And that plan would be over the next 3 months of execution from start of the campaign to the onboarding process. So it's a fire and also police officers, the same. Public service recruitment is challenging, not only from a financial perspective, but a retention perspective, because there are some things that no matter how great the pay is and how great the benefits are, we will lose people at times to location and other opportunities. We've got to present the best plan that we can to serve our citizens and to retain the best quality people we can here, and we do that through a lot of different ways. Our benefit plan is one of them. We know people come and apply here because of the benefits that we offer. Pay is certainly a function that we constantly look at as a leadership team, ways that we can be improving. We do pay studies regularly. I receive information from other jurisdictions that are doing pay studies now that help us as we look at structure and pay. So it's an ongoing process that we team up, I think, fairly well on.
And just truthfully, I think the picture of government employees, specifically in police and fire, I don't want to speak for Chief Hatcher, but if we continue to look at the way we've done business previously, we're going to fail. I think it's going to be difficult to retain employees past a 3 to 5 year point, no matter what you do for them. That is the society that we live in today. That is with the education level that our employees that we are hiring have. When you hire somebody and spend a considerable amount of money that we do to serve the citizens the best that we can, they also know they have opportunities elsewhere. I have, in my 31 years, never seen the shortage of public safety applicants. We're looking at a 75% decrease in applicants across the nation in the fire service. It's like nothing I've ever seen or ever heard of, and there's a host of reasons, post-COVID, education, society, however you want to look at it. But if we continue to think that we're going to hire an employee and keep them for 25 years, it's a challenge. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would probably go so far as to say I don't think that's going to be the norm.
I think it would be the unicorn to have somebody at 25 years.
I think that's like with everywhere, but let me see if I'm understanding this right. The SAFER grant, we get it, we hire the 6 police officers.
Firefighters.
I mean.
You can hire 6 police.
Stepped off in that firefighter.
He is the best, he's the best at this. Y'all are terrible.
So that money would go specifically towards those 6 firefighters. If after 1 year, one of them quits, the city gets penalized for that?
No, sir. The way I understand it, it's almost like a reimbursement annually. We would not request any money for the federal government for an employee that's not working. And it's only for those 6 employees. If one of them quits and we hire another one, that does not count towards it.
Right, but okay, I got you.
It's almost like a reimbursement program. There's a considerable amount of paperwork to go into requesting the grant, and then the quarterly paperwork that follows it is not insignificant either. When they're handing out money like that, they request the paperwork trail to follow, and I guess that would be something that Kamisha and our team would handle within the fire department.
So to get off the path here about the
Yes,
money and hiring that number you just gave, that's kind of staggering, 75%.
Yes, sir.
What do you do as I guess both of you, to try and retain that,
No, let it rip, bud.
Here's one comment I would make. The attrition that we've seen out of firefighters and out of police officers and out of dispatchers in the public safety realm predominantly are not for dissatisfaction in their role at the city, it's for opportunities that we just simply don't provide, right? The hiring of those replacement positions have been people that specifically want to work here in Laverne in these particular functions. And I know in Chief Beasley's last hiring class, we lost one recruit that I know of for a medical-related issue. But everybody else that has completed that training, solid hires, doing great in their role, learning quickly. So part of the retention question, Vice Mayor, is in selecting the right candidate for hire, not just saying yes to everybody, but selecting that right person that not only completes the physical and the testing and all of that, but also in his gut, as the chief says, this is somebody that we're going to invest in and I believe wants to be here.
A lot of this is going to revolve, again, it's going to have to, there's got to be a change in mindset, I think, in our leadership, in our department, Andrew's position in his department. As we go forward, there's going to be times that we're not going to, we've been fully staffed maybe 6 months out of the 3 years that I've been here, with 48 firefighters in the streets on one, but between the 3 shifts. And I think about of a 6-month period that we've been fully staffed. And I think that's the norm. And it may be something that we have to look at in years to come, that our complement, our number of firefighters that we have in our staffing levels are higher than what they are today. That way that we can have a bigger buffer to continue to provide the safety for our citizens and our membership, our team. We're gonna have to change the way that we look at business. It is not, this is not a Laverne issue. This is not a Rutherford County issue, not a Tennessee issue. This is nationwide. When United States Fire Administrator, the head fire person in the United States, says we have a significant challenge, there's a significant challenge.
I agree with you there, because it can affect everything, even besides our residents, the employees. You've got burnout, both mentally, physically, from doing this job.
There's nothing that I can do worse to a firefighter than tell them at 6 o'clock in the morning, you can't go home today. I don't have staffing levels because somebody's off sick and 3 people have resigned in the last 6 months. There's nothing that I can do to hurt morale, retention, PTSD, behavioral health, all of it, than say you can't go home because I don't have somebody there. And I can't let them leave because at that point our fire trucks are understaffed, and then we put safety risk for everybody involved. We have minimum levels for a reason, and to protect our employees, again, I don't know how else to say it, is we have to change the way that we look at government business today. At least in the fire service. I don't want to speak for anybody else in the room, but I don't know any other way around it.
Any other questions?
On
May
that.
go back to the mouse hole.
Take your mouse and go back there. Thank you. So some of the things that we would do to increase our retention is increase the stipend. That's your next item up for discussion. We currently pay our advanced EMT 50 cents an hour, and we're requesting to move that to $1 an hour. And then our one sole paramedic to move that person to $1.50 an hour. That brings us in line with the region on what that rank pays.
Don't see the $1.50. Is that? I just see the
Well, it's
26.
50 cents. They get $1
Up in,
now.
yeah.
Okay.
They get $1
Additional
now.
50 cents.
Okay, wonderful. Next, we're going to talk about what media needs, i.e. a new microphone. We need to get you some rechargeable batteries. New capital request, Bruce.
Thank you, sir. Our next request is for one new fire inspector. That individual would be strictly for inspections. Currently, we have a fire marshal. He does inspections. He does new construction inspections as well as plans review. The life safety officer is challenged. He does inspections for income, or the current properties, the annual inspections, as well as works with the schools and the local businesses. Our desire is to turn this more into a community risk reduction office than a fire marshal's office, and that would mean that the life safety officer would be spending time at the senior center, the schools, buildings within the city, the local businesses. Part of that survey that should be coming out this week is trying to determine what does businesses need from us, if that's CPR class or evacuation drills, whatever that is, and that's what we would like to see that life safety officer doing. And then that would put this inspector to be in the streets 8 hours a day. So to answer the questions before you get there, where would we put this person? In their vehicle working, not in the office. This person needs to be in the streets for their 8-hour day minus their lunch and their break. During the ISO review, we gave them, if I recall correctly, 804 buildings or inspections that we had conducted, but we had only touched 200 and some odd buildings, less than 250 buildings, because we were going back to the same buildings so many times and repeat because of failures. We proved that we can inspect the number of buildings, 800, there's only 600 plus businesses in the city of Laverne that we know is on a tax list. But we did 804 inspections, but we only touched 230, 250 of those. So with this, we can knock out all of those buildings is our goal.
And that can help us with as far as fire safety inspections. I take it whoever that would work with the task force.
Yes, sir. So that, we would continue to let Kevin, the life safety officer, work with that task force within there, trying to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the business owners and getting things up to codes. And delinquent buildings or derelict buildings, deal with those appropriately as they come about. But that inspector would definitely be a key piece to that. And we'll talk about the vehicle and the impact fees later. We have promotion of 3 lieutenants for that tower. They would be internal promotions. And that's all I have for the 23-24 budget year.
That's all.
Sir,
So that's all.
that's enough, isn't it? Y'all have any questions? Thank you.
Yes. Bruce, can we have 5 minutes?
Certainly. I mean, we can. We got one more department to talk if you want to.
I'll just have to miss.
All right, we'll take a break. It's fine.
Take a 5-minute break and come back. Oh, that's their salary level.
Should be good.
No.
Something is we're trying to add a staff member and they require no office space, just a little bit of refrigerator space, and we definitely have that.
He's
Trying-
answering that question up front.
Well, I'm trying to redeem everybody in Kyle's eyes. I don't know if you guys are aware, we had a building cleaning service about a month ago. They bailed out on us. So that service is no longer available to us. We kind of talked about it. Do we want to rebid that back out? Or do we want to bring on a full-time staff member to do that? You see it says full-time custodian / maintenance worker. Our thinking was we could have them cleaning buildings, and if they got done, then we could also pull them off on any other needs that we might have maintenance-wise. That's what is coming in with benefits. That's a little higher than what we were paying for the building cleaning service, but it's a little lower than what we thought we were going to get into the building cleaning service for. The company that had it bid it very low just to get in the door, and then there was constantly issues with that, so we ended up parting ways amicably with them. So we'd kind of like to move forward. I don't know if we bid it back out, what kind of results we would get. We definitely have to pay more. It's our staff has been picking it up now. It's getting kind of spread thin with the grass cutting duties that are coming on. So, we're proposing that for next year's budget. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
David, would this person also go into the multipurpose building and do inspections like the day after a party or something?
Well, this person would not specifically do that. We do have somebody that goes in there now, on the weekends. We have a weekend staff member that checks after every rental. So we do have that covered. We could pull this person off anywhere. If that was needed, that would be a use for them also.
Okay. I just, sometimes when I go in there for other events, the floor is just really sticky. And
Yep. And you know, we do have regular renters that use it during the week. Our weekend staff is pretty good and diligent about going in there. Webb goes in there every day. That's one of his buildings that he checks. Full-time custodian would pick up PD, CID, library, codes, and fire admin. That's what we picked up now. We do have a full-time part-timer here at City Hall, if that makes sense. He's here 4 days a week.
Okay. Thank you.
What was the city paying that bunch?
Right about 37, I think, 37,000. When we first looked into building cleaning services, we were thinking somewhere high 70s, 80s. I can't remember if we had 3 people put in for the bid, but he was less than half of the other. So the other came in mid-70s, I think. But at that point, how do you not go with the lowest bid? He was from here.
Were
wanted
they
to
there
work-
every day?
Well, they were on site every day.
Okay.
They claim they were on site every day. They had a routine. I think they hit the PD, CID every day, library twice a week maybe, 3 times a week, and fire admin twice a week, and codes building twice a week. Well, what started out at CID was twice a week. They cut it back to once a week, and somehow we were still getting double billed for who knows what. And
Was
I don't
that-
know.
Was that one person or 2 or 3 or?
That was supposed to be 2 on a regular basis, sometimes 3. They claimed there was 3. We never put our eyes on 3. They sent 2, we put our eyes on 1, but when it came time to leave, we put our eyes on 2. So where that one came from, I have no idea.
Is one person gonna be able to do all that?
It'll be tough. We have, I think if they get caught up and you're not scrambling to catch up 2 or 3 weeks worth of uncleanliness where you're doing it daily. We have 3 guys right now that catch it in the morning, and it takes them approximately 3 hours. So that's 9 man-hours. But that's 9 valuable hours that they are pulled off from doing something else.
So that's all this person would do? He wouldn't be getting pulled off to mow grass or?
Not if they're caught up, yes. If they're not caught up, no. Can one person do it? Maybe. I think that's a good way to try. I would rather try adding a full-time employee, and have the ability to use them somewhere else if we're caught up, than trying to bid it back out, which is gonna cost us more money to start with. You're looking at least, I would say, minimum 80 grand. And mind you, Public Works was not in that rotation. So if we were to bid it back out, we'd like to include Public Works also. Public Works wasn't in that building, Parks wasn't in that building, Multipurpose wasn't in that bid, Parks Bathroom, Senior Center. So there are some city-owned buildings that were not included in that. Yeah, it's a lot of work for one person. I mean, we just have to play it by ear, see what happens. I mean, I don't see a point in trying to fill 2 when maybe we can get by with 1. Of course, we'd like to have all the staff we can get, because we're not requiring any office space for them, but.
So this one person, if they need help though, the support system is there for them to get support if they need help.
Yes, Webb's there, he's full-time, he's 40 hours a week. We have Don, I think Don's been going back and forth a little bit between here and the PD in the afternoons. We do have, in the slow months, it's not an issue getting that person extra help. It's this time of year through the fall where everything is starting to pop. Our maintenance guys thought they could keep up with the building cleaning when the service first bailed. As of today, they're scrambling. Grass hadn't been cut. It's probably gonna be Thursday before they get to that. Help desk tickets coming in, projects are coming in daily. So then it's, what do we put off today to get to tomorrow? So with them taking, 3 guys, 9 hours, that's quite a bit of time devoted to building cleaning.
So I guess what I'm trying to think ahead is once the new Public Works building is up and functioning, they won't have to run.
That's the next line
Yeah.
item.
That's the next year's, yeah.
That's in next year's budget we're proposing.
And that person will be dedicated to that building alone.
I try not to jump ahead here.
I do also want to note that the most of these funds for this full-time custodian, we already have in the budget. We're taking it out of the city hall buildings line item that we had the service paid for, and we would move this over to Parks and Rec / maintenance for this new position. So it's not a lot of new money there for this one because we're just moving funds from one department to another. And if you remember was it last year, we tried to hire some part-time custodians and we could not get any applicants for part-time. So that's why we're trying to focus on a full-time position. Once you put those benefits in there, it helps with recruiting and the number of hours.
Andrew, you don't want to talk about the challenges of recruiting a part-time custodians, do you?
Can I weigh in on that? No. We don't. Come on, anytime. That ride home's good, ain't it?
I'm playing. I'm playing.
I have heard about how well his ride home has been for the last 2 weeks since it's got paved out there. What do you do about that?
You're in.
Anyone have any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Okay, so that finishes up the personnel or recurring request for the various departments. There's one other section in here before we sum up general fund. We've called these the fund balance items. This is really the construction items, the furniture, low voltage wiring, cameras, door locks that we're going to need for the new Public Works facility. Because we're paying for these out of fund balance. So wanted to make sure that it's noted in here, that that's where these funds are coming from. So obviously the total there for general fund is estimated at $8,250,000. I understand there may be some changes coming to some of that, but it's not been finalized at this point. So that'll be discussed when we're ready for that. So once you add up all of these items, you'll see a summary at the bottom of page 2. Obviously, your carryover items we've discussed is $11,799,000. Your new non-recurring request is $2,507,000. Your new recurring personnel request is $542,000. And then we subtracted out the possible grant funding for those firefighters that we talked about a few minutes ago. So the total new request that we have for this year is $2,819,000. If you look at the operating budget that Tanya handed out earlier, we have $2,924,000 available after you subtract revenues, expenditures from revenues. So we still have around $100,000 left over after all of these requests. Again, this is estimated. It's not totally final, but that should be close. And then, of course, you have your fund balance items there at the bottom. Any questions, comments, concerns?
That 2.8 million, that's with the assumption that we're getting the SAFER grant, correct?
Correct.
If we don't get the SAFER grant, then we dip into fund balance. Is that fair to say?
No, I think we decided we wouldn't hire.
It's possible that we,
Part-time, aren't you?
it is possible that we would wait on hiring some of those, but obviously, there could be a budget amendment. For the capital items, I wouldn't say we would take out a fund balance necessarily for a personnel item, but it all comes out to be about the same.
Phyllis has been sitting there for over an hour and a half
Wait and say that.
waiting to get that in, and she finally made it.
Completely worth it, though. Any questions?
Any questions, comments, or concerns? Obviously, there are other pages in this document for the different funds. We'll go over those next week, hopefully. The third spreadsheet is the larger one. It looks like this. And I'm going to turn it over to Kyle. I know he loves that. This is your major projects list.
Looks like what?
And Kyle has put a lot of work into this. And I'm going to let him explain it. You find your copy there, Vice Mayor?
Did you not get one?
Yeah, check in here.
It should be underneath your,
Threw it away or something?
Here. I got you. Kyle just skipped over you. It's okay.
I didn't pass these out. No, I got a lot of work to do still on this, because I noticed that as far as the years, when you get past the general fund, it's only on the top, so I need to clean this up format-wise so y'all can be easier to follow. I'm gonna give you a broad overview of what the sheet, or what's on the sheet, and then we can go back and discuss certain funds for right now, because I think we're just gonna try to hit general fund tonight. And then we can discuss the other funds later. But what I've tried to do is put what anybody's requested, or what we have on the books, or what we know of as projects. So that's in the first column. And then on the top box, it's gonna be your general fund. The second one's gonna be your streets capital, which is the 311. The third one is gonna be parks capital, which is your 313 fund. The fourth one's the water sewer fund, and then the fifth one is your stormwater fund. I did not do one for fire impact fee or anything like that. I think those are on some other sheets. What I did do then is, if you look at the 23-24 fiscal year, I've got certain projects that are listed in that column. Some of these projects are like fire station. I'll just go over through the general fund. It'll make more sense. Fire station 41 right now is currently being built. So that 11 million figure, that is expected this year. And I think, as far as I know, everything's still on track to be open by next spring, correct?
May 11, I believe
Okay.
is the project date.
So we should get that full 11 million figure this coming fiscal year. The furniture, of course, for fire, we've discussed it being 400,000. When you get down to the public works facility, of course, that's not hitting just the general fund. That is going to hit multiple funds. And if you look below the box where it's gray, you'll see a funding source section. So as you can tell, in that 25 million, that's going to be broken down to roughly 15 million in water sewer fund, 4 million in the stormwater fund balance of 8.7. The furniture and the security cameras, low voltage, I think a few other miscellaneous items, we've estimated at $1 million apiece. That may come in under that, but we feel that's probably a fair number to use for budgeted purposes.
Kyle?
Yes.
Real quick with the security cameras. Glenn, we got a grant a year or two ago, and I think some of the cameras were used with the senior center, and I want to say the library, for some security cameras. Can you have a look to see if this new building may qualify for that sort of thing? if it's still out there, because
I'll check with Kamisha, I think.
That's the PE Partners grant that we apply for every year. I think it's a maximum of $5,000, so it's not going to do much when it comes to security cameras.
there went that idea.
So going back to the general fund, what I've done is try to, at the bottom, you'll see a general fund total for each of the fiscal years. So 23, 24, you're looking at 40 million. So what I did is put the funding source to that, to where if you'll look at that total column, it's 40 million also. So those should match. So that'll give you an idea of where the funding comes from. So on the 2021 bond note, that was 17, is it 17 and a half, Bruce, or just 17?
It's just under 17, I think it was. Yeah.
Okay, that's going to be expending 12 of it.
And then you've got in here the police expansion as well.
The police expansion I've left in here because I can move it over 1 year if that's what we're going to do, but we've currently got it under contract. I don't think I've paid any more recently, and I know they know we're on hold. So they're not going to expend anything. If we want to move that completely over, I can easily add that over or move it over.
I would think so.
Yeah, that'll get confusing, especially to me.
And one thing everybody keep in mind, this is the first stab and draft at putting all this on one sheet, because when you get down to the streets, you're going to figure out, that's why I did this. There's going to be some projects like Hickory Street extension has been brought up. Do we need to do it? Do we not? If you start looking at the numbers, it's going to be hard to pay for everything we've got on the books right now. So I know it's jumping around, but going back to the general fund, kind of what we're looking at is, as you can tell, it's like Fire Station 41 is getting it done this coming fiscal year, and then 44 would be, and Chief, if you want to explain what each one would be, Station 44 would be designing it in 24-25 fiscal year, and then of course fiscal year of 25-26 would be building that station, and 44 would be Lake Road area is the best way to put it.
Are y'all thinking about that property that's being donated from Arbor Ridge, or are you looking at other property from like Mitchell Bowman, or even seeing if the county would allow for a joint utilization in front of Rock Springs?
All of that is an option. One of the things that we have discussed is opportunities with Rutherford County in the school and the EMS. In the previous administration from the Rutherford County EMS having a cohabitation with the Rutherford County ambulance. We need to re-engage in that conversation to see if that's still open to them. And if we could do that, it may open opportunities for other pieces of property. But the two that we're looking at is the one in Arbor Ridge, and then we have had that one discussion with Mr. Bowman.
I would say you still have those opportunities. Chris Clark reached out to me probably a month or two ago, wanting me to keep an open mind as to possibility of doing a joint venture with the ambulance station. So I would say that's still open.
Outstanding. So that, 44, you see that's $500,000 for design fees, and then the following year would be the construction fees for that. And we base that on today's construction prices, right, Kyle?
Yes.
And that does not include 2 years from now or 3 years from now construction prices.
Yeah, I mean, this sheet, what I plan on doing is adjusting it every year, updating it on the prices and stuff like that. First, though, I want to get it out here just to get roughly what the board kind of wants as far as importance, as far as the years, especially whenever we get into the streets. You'll see we need to move some around and figure out which one comes first. Like I say, as far as fire is concerned, they'll want to do Station 41, then they want to do Station 44. After 44 is complete, they will want to relocate, which will end up being a new build on Station 42. So that's where the design fees would be. And 25, 26 is what I have down now. And then, of course, the building of the station in 26, 27 fiscal year. Once they do those, of course, this is still backing up, but Station 43 at some point will need renovation. Chief can probably go over what he's expecting there, but that's $200,000 I put in 24 and 25.
That facility does not have any female restroom facilities. There's no locker room facilities for a female employee. In reality, it's extremely small for any group of 3 or 4 firefighters that would be there in the locker room space. With a new building at Station 41, having a training room there, we can consume and repurpose the training facility, our training room that we have there, into more adequate sleeping quarters and both male and female restrooms. There is typically greater success in looking for grants in renovations versus new fire stations. It's very difficult to get grant money for a new brick and mortar building. However, renovations, the money can be found a little easier, or there is more success in that. So that's one of the things that we'll work with Kamisha to try to get some of that money, because it needs to be brought up to ADA accommodations as well. And there may be some federal money to allow us to do that. So that $200,000 we might be able to split in some capacity. We'll relocate the members of Fire Station 43 to 41 during that process.
And we touched on the fire training facility previously, but that would be 24, 25 fiscal year as far as design cost, and then actually construction in 25, 26 fiscal year. Then you get down to City Hall building renovation. Like it's been mentioned before, once Public Works gets completed, there's going to be some moving offices and different things in this building. So, and plus, if you've noticed, the bathroom facilities and everything else in this building really needs an update. So we put some money in for that in the 24-25 fiscal year that we'll probably bring up next budget. And then I've got on here still the safe room, safe space. That is really what the total of the grant is right now. That's probably really needs to be updated, but I didn't really know what to do with it yet, because currently the grant, I think, is 30-something thousand for this phase, and of course then we got to go to another phase, and then we go to another phase. So I've just left what the numbers was. That's, since it's in a grant, I didn't want to put 8 million out there and it'd be something that we've only got a grant for 4 million. So what I did is also, if you look, if it's got a bond associated with it or grant funding, in that column it'll say that, and then I've tried to put it under each section what that grant or bond is. So like on the 2021, like I said, that's where at 17.5 or 17,685. Now we didn't get that total amount. That's, you still got fees and stuff like that to pay. So that is what the bond was for, though. And then the hazard mitigation, like I say, as you can see, it's only a very small piece of this 4 million at this point in time. So I guess anybody will move things around? Is it?
Well, I think the safe room portion of it is we're waiting on word of the grant. I know we completed the archaeological sonar readings or radar readings, whichever one they are. Got those results back. We've gotten that off to the state, and it's just basically a waiting game as to next steps.
We'll wait on them, and like I say, that's when I think we'll be able to look at the additional funding to see how much is covered. I know the general idea behind the grant. I think it was at 7,500 square feet of the safe space is supposed to be 100% paid by the grant. Mm-hmm. So even if the cost of that building goes up or down, that 7,500 square feet should be fully paid for. Correct. It's just the
rest of
office area, if you have a kitchen, any of the other area, that's what will go,
parking, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it could be a whole lot more.
Yeah.
So,
The,
like I say, what I'll try to do is update the figures whenever we know more, but I just wanted to get everything on one sheet at this point in time. That way you kind of see what we got in front of us, because I don't want to go over streets much tonight, but I want you to kind of look at those. I really would like to know what priority there is, because if you look at just South Waldron and Old Nashville, you're looking at two $35 million projects. And we definitely don't have $70 million to go do both of them at the same time. So part of the bond that we got in the 2021, and Phyllis or Tanya or Bruce, whoever can add to this, we are going to have to do a second draw on that. So the question will be, when do we do that and how much? Do we, and I don't know if we can increase it, if it's got to stay at the 17.5, or we can get additional than the 17.5, how much? We'll definitely need to look at the bond schedule too, to see when things are dropping off, if we need to bond some of these other items.
Well, I would say for actual book purposes for the fire training facility, I mean, we can't go forward with the design on that until we have land nailed down, because you can't just design it and just place it anywhere. You've got to take into account, you know, the land topography, drainage, all of that. So that's kind of up in the air right now, because we have not re-engaged with the church as far as where they're at with their pricing. I know at one point it was, you know, how much they were wanting was way up here, but the valuation of the land was much further down. So that's always a concern. And you've already got down to move the police expansion, correct?
I'm moving it.
And I say that on behalf of all the women that work in this building, they would love more women's bathroom space.
I can say from a male standpoint, I would love an additional space myself.
I've heard about it more from women than men, though. If any of the women in the building would like to comment on that one.
We just need more bathrooms, period. Let's put it that way.
We need one back in finance. It's a long way down the other one.
Part-time, right?
Shots fired by Bruce.
No, I mean,
She's got Andrew's mouse. It's weak.
one thing we've discussed is once, you know, the new Public Works facility opens, water billing will be moving over to that new facility. So this whole area up front will be vacated. Now, obviously, I don't know how things are going to be moved around yet, but the thought was to add some new public restrooms up to the front of the building, possibly make these staff bathrooms only. But we also would probably move city court to the front of the building, and we would move the tax department to the front of the building and close off this back portion of City Hall to the public. I mean, obviously, you know, they could be escorted back, you know, to HR or whatever other departments end up being back there. But those are some of the renovations that we will make at some point, you know, pending the funding when that time comes.
Well, and that helps to, even for security purposes. We just saw everything that happened
Exactly.
with the bank shooting today. We want to make sure that staff is secure.
Mm-hmm.
And if this is, you know, administration offices, so to say, and then you have everything up front, there's no reason not to secure that back portion.
Correct.
Any other suggestions or changes for the general fund portion? Okay, Kyle.
Do we want to do streets tonight, or do we want
Talk
to
about it, yeah.
go ahead and do it? Blair West, of course, and going back over the list, what I've done is you've got your engineering cost, and then you've got the construction cost, its estimate. If there's any right-of-way or acquisition or anything like that, I've tried to put some cost in where they apply, or that we know they apply at this point. So like on Blair West, we may, I know there's a developer out there that's looking at, you know, doing something with that property, so we may end up not having to pay as much, but we put some money in for that. Of course, if we start building Blair West in 23-24, it's not going to get totally completed in 23-24, so we've kind of put that over the 2 years there. As far as South Waldron, kind of the same type scenario would be, finishing up some design, getting started on doing the construction in 24, 25. And if you do that, then we'll split that over. I think the estimate right now will be about, if we did the whole entirety of the project, about a 4 to 5 year project at this point. Now, if we do phases, we can, again, get each one completed in one, that fiscal year. We can definitely, once we get the plans designed to a point of knowing the traffic control and everything else and just what makes sense, we can share that with you more to make a better decision on, do we want to do the entirety of the project, or do we want to bust it up in phases, what we need to do. Currently, though, I've just shown it as one big project over the 5 years. Sam Ridley connector, I've just left it off for now. I don't know the level of importance. I don't feel that it's to the important level of being in front of Old Nashville or South Waldron or Blair West. The other thing on Blair West, in my opinion, is it would help help in the construction of South Waldron if you put Blair West in. So keep that in mind. Murfreesboro Road on the Advanced Traffic Management System, that's that CMAQ grant. Pretty much the design and everything would be finished up this coming fiscal year for a 24-25 completion or construction timeframe is what's on the sheet so far.
And for the board, for all of our board members, just a reminder with CMAQ, because it's been a while, that is the sidewalks on Murfreesboro Road. That's the street lights as far as the crossing lights
Head
at each of
signals.
the red lights.
Mason Road realignment, again, we've had that designed. That, in my opinion, probably just needs to stay on the shelf. If we need to move forward with that, that's fine. Just let me know and we'll get a updated or a good cost for that. Fergus Road improvements. This is one that currently right now the estimate is $2 million. We have the design pretty much completed. If we want to move forward with that, then we'll need to do the right-of-way acquisition. So that's kind of what you see in the 23-24 fiscal year, is finishing up any design that would be needed, and then also doing the right-of-way acquisition. And then the next 2 years would be the construction. Again, if that needs to shift one way or the other, please let me know what importance everything has, and I'll shift accordingly. Old Nashville Highway, again, the estimate is about a $35 million project, so by the time you add it, what's left on engineering fees, and then probably, same way, I think I left that off on South Waldron, but you're looking at $4 million, $4.5 million on each project for right-of-way acquisition. So then I've tried to spread it out over the 4 or 5 years that it will take to do that project also. Hickory Street extension, we went ahead and put some costs down because we've had some discussion about that. And then Carruthers Road widening and realignment, basically have put it in here also. Have not put anything down because we've not had any engineering design requested, have not budgeted any at this point. I just, like I said, wanted to put these projects on there because it has been brought up, and that's roughly what you're looking at. And like I say, we'll need to put that in whatever year accordingly.
I've spoken to, with Carruthers, some of the biggest concerns were from the school bus drivers and parents with the curve. And while we were looking at this, we also widened that curve, added some lighting to it. Since that's happened, I've not heard any complaints. I've heard several of them say how much easier it is to get through that curve than it was before. A couple people at night still wish it was a little bit more lit up, but that's just about everywhere. But for that portion, right now, I'm fine with holding off on that.
Yeah, I heard the same thing about that curve, and filling that shoulder in and stuff, so,
Yeah.
especially from the bus drivers.
Yes, we don't want to be like Chattanooga where they had that bus rollover. I will say Hickory Street there is both business and residential. People have expressed interest in having that connected through to Motlow. At the same time, logistically, it can help us because Jefferson Pike Bridge is going to have repairs eventually. Well, if you shut off access that way, everything's going down Old Nashville Highway in Jefferson Pike. If you make that connection, you can send that straight to Sam Ridley. The other thing is we're still waiting on the Jefferson Pike red lights, so that's just another portion that can help deter traffic from going that way, is, again, sending it right through Motlow Drive, I think that's what it's called, over to Sam Ridley. So personally, I would like to see it.
One thing we would do on this, and I know Gary reached out and got some rough numbers, but we'll still need to do a lot more research into this one if it's what the board wants to do to do this. Of course, it won't be just as simple as connecting just where the road ends now and then where the other road ends. We're gonna have to widen it. We know that trucks are gonna use it at that point. If it does get widened and it gets opened up. So we'll definitely need to not redesign, well, it'll be redesigned.
Yeah.
Basically all of Hickory Street. So that's why you're seeing a larger figure. And then on top of that, we'll probably need to have discussions with Smyrna to see on their side, was it built accordingly for truck traffic? Because I do not know, because I definitely don't want to send truck traffic down through that road and then it tear up all the way back to Sam Ridley. So I don't know what that's one of the conversations we can have with Smyrna, is just reach out and see what kind of street specification that was designed to and make sure we're good there.
Yeah. I know they were interested in that connection. Mary Esther and Brian Hercules were supportive of that, so.
I assume it probably is, but it, like I said, we definitely just want to check that. And I just know that the truck traffic, if it gets opened up, they're going to use that.
Yes.
So,
The other thing with Old Nashville, the southern edge of that, I know I've sat down with the Mr. Patel, who is the property owner for what is that, about 50 acres over there, 43?
used to be Pegasus Park.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're looking to develop that out, and we've already had conversations that if they're going to come with some kind of design, we're going to need their assistance with the road. And so they so far seem to be a willing participant for it. They haven't submitted design plans for it, but that's something that hopefully they can be a good partner in, because with the addition of all of the apartments that Smyrna's building there on Sam Ridley, there's several hundred. That's just going to help keep adding on to that traffic over there.
Where's that at?
Pegasus Park, it's the southern end. It's before you get to Earl's. All the wooded property.
On the left or right?
It's if you're headed towards Smyrna, it's on the right.
What's it zoned?
It is residential and commercial in the front.
Yes.
And it ties,
Residential, as in R1?
I
yes.
think it's R2, I think. It might be R1. But
It's one of-
I think it's R2 with,
R2.
yeah, I think it's R2 with 2 commercial lots on the front, is what it had.
But there's some discussion there, and so they have some insights into even possibly growing that commercial area. But still, right now, it's a conversation. But at least right now, they seem to be a willing participant with the road, because they understand that road is not going to be currently compatible. So that's going to be a little bit more assistance there.
And on Old Nashville, it and Waldron, you know, we've got the designers working constantly on that, so at this point, so they're moving forward. You know, it may be something that we go from Cheney on Old Nashville on out to Smyrna first, and then, you know, come back and do the
Slowly work.
at a different phase or something. Again, all this though, like you start looking at the numbers at the bottom of those columns, it's a high number. And there's definitely not the fund balance to do those projects. And if you go back to what we've had, you know, we had 2 million surplus this time or 2 million that we're looking at, 2.8 or whatever. That's not gonna take care of these projects.
Well, I'll say for me, the biggest two priorities are South Waldron and Blair West. We've got commercial, we have massive amounts of growth out there. Arbor Ridge is starting this summer. Mission Hills is starting, both with its single-family homes, its apartment complexes. Woodland Ridge, or what is it, right across the street from my neighborhood? Woodland Hills, there we go, I couldn't think of it. Woodland Hills
Mission Hills and all that.
is starting up with its newest phase. Brookside is still building. Carruthers at the Hamlet. Pinnacle Point still has another phase under construction. The Ridge is still going. So we have a large amount, and that's just the Laverne side. That doesn't even take into thoughts Gwynn Farms. There's several hundred units been approved in Nolensville on Lake Road. So we have got to get that road ready, because the last traffic study I saw, pretty much the entrance and exits for that area at peak times is maxed out. So we're behind the ball. We've been behind the ball for a while, and I think getting that done helps us both with our residents, with all the congestion and traffic, helps us with the commercial that's coming in out there, and hopefully will keep us ahead of this growth.
I agree with that.
Any road projects that's not on here that need to be? And I guess go back to general funds, anything on there that anybody knows of that? One thing I would like to add as far as the parks, I'm not gonna get into that tonight unless you wanna go through that one also, Bruce, but had a meeting this afternoon, David, Gary, Andrew, I can't remember, I think it was all that was city that was present, but basically we met with the Corps trying to figure out how we move forward as far as getting the lease agreement with them to have the greenway going out to the boat ramp. After that meeting, I think we're looking at probably a $200,000 engineering design service that we'll need to probably get approved to move forward. That way we can get this design to a point that the Corps will give us a lease agreement, and if that is the case, hopefully that 1.9 figure will stay what the construction cost will be. But again, if that revises, we can, update that and show y'all what that'll be next year. But I highly will recommend that we get, which I don't have it on here because like I said, I just found out about it today, $200,000 added. And to be honest, I'd prefer to have $200,000 added as soon as possible. I'd rather do a budget amendment.
No pressure, Tanya, no pressure.
Does that include, is that just the walkway, or does that include anything, amenities out there at Hurricane?
Well, that's what we discussed today, is basically phase one, I think, would probably be, we would show phase two, phase three, whatever, however many phases we want to say it conceptually, but phase one, they said we would have to have what we're going to do in the next year or two. So it'll be, this first phase would be the greenway and a parking area. We had on there kind of a walking trail down to what we was going to call a kayak launch next to the boat ramp. Pretty much the direction they gave was if we add anything that's going to be close to that boat ramp, they're going to be asking us to take over the boat ramp. And so I said, let's nix anything that has to do with the boat ramp then.
Take it over.
Yes.
Which right now we're not in a place to, because that's going to require additional staffing. There's also, if you've been out there in the last couple of
It's
weeks.
beat all to pieces.
Yes, and that's
why
going
they don't want
to
it.
be very expensive to repair that, and Pool Knobs is the same way.
Yeah, so I told them, well, we want to stay away from that area then. So probably what we'll do is, like I said, phase one will be the actual greenway surface, which will be the old road bed, and then come into a parking area and tying that parking area back over to the boat ramp access drive. We will show conceptually, but it'll be in the lease agreement, will be a few fishing piers. And we'll show, we didn't really get into the detail, but it will be some structures at the parking area. If we're gonna have any pavilions or anything like that, we will need to show that conceptually. Doesn't mean we have to do it, it just means that at a later date, we don't have to start the process over again. And then we talked about having a nature trail around or in a loop near the parking area. So that will be what we're discussing. The Corps seemed to be on board with it. They said they didn't see any issues with it being approved or anything like that. It's just a matter of going through the process, and to get through their real estate portion of it, we would have to have full design plans, basically for phase one.
So tell me again, how would we have to take care of the boat ramp if we did what over here?
If we wanted to take over the boat ramp tomorrow, we could just take over the boat ramp.
Oh, they're not saying we have to. If we want
No.
this, we gotta have that.
They're willing to allow us to take over the.
Oh, they're willing to allow
Yeah,
us.
if you so choose.
I like that verbiage.
Yes.
They.
The big thing is we need to ramp up to it, though.
They were kind of
Jump.
suggesting that if we are going to put anything near the boat ramp to where the uses would be not questionable, but kind of commingling with each other, that would probably be in their request back to us is, oh, sure, we'll let you have this lease agreement. However, we want you to take care of the boat ramp, since we would have multiple people using our stuff and their stuff. So that's why I'm saying, let's just forget the kayak launch or anything else that's even close to that boat ramp, because
We don't wanna take care of that.
that's.
So as you're going down the road there to the boat ramp, you're talking about a parking lot on the left there somewhere
On the left.
halfway down or into that road bed or whatever.
We'd probably keep it closer to the Stones River Road as possible.
Stay away from that boat ramp.
Because the other thing we've talked about before, and David, we talked about maybe a restroom facility there. However, that would be a nightmare, thinking about how many boaters will be using it, and
There was a little bit of talk in the Greenway Advisory Committee about a sand area down there. Would that be something that they want to fool with? Because that would get awful close to
Well,
that boat ramp.
You wouldn't want to put sand over there, and that's a flood area. Very first time we have a flood, that sand's gone.
Well, I'm just saying, I watched the Greenway and they had talked about, and of course David's in there, somebody talked about.
You know, and they threw around a whole lot of ideas. And I think kind of what Kyle said, the Corps they're willing to give it over if we're willing to take care of it. But they don't want us to put a kayak launch down there because they're afraid people using a kayak launch are gonna use their parking lot. And same with us. We don't want to put a bathroom up there at our parking lot and have the people using the boat ramp using our facilities. So as far as a sandy beach area, it's been kicked around. I don't know if a whole lot of merit was given to that because we're kind of more focused on how do we connect the existing trail to the boat ramp area now and what we could provide there. So our focus was more on the fishing piers, the walking trail. Yeah, everything is being kicked around at one time, but we're gonna have a volleyball court down there, horseshoe pit, picnic tables. We haven't gotten that far in depth, and that was really not part of the conceptual plan to start with. Their main thing is anything we think we're gonna do in the future, put it on the front end. That way, if they approve it 15 years from now, if we have a shelter on the initial plans, we don't have to go back for approval. We can go ahead and build that shelter. But if it's not on that first set of designs that they approve, then it's basically starting the process all over.
And what I kind of took from the meeting, like he's saying, is let's say let's put a volleyball court down there close to the water. Well, those people using the volleyball court are gonna use our parking spaces, and if they're using our parking spaces, then we want you to take over the whole boat ramp. That's kinda how they left
What it
it.
sounds like.
Well, and it's open-ended too, you know, the conversation was had, what if 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, the city changes its mind and wants to go in the direction of taking that over? The current administration that we spoke to today was all on board with that. They didn't think in the future that was gonna be an issue. It's just, at some point, is the city willing to bite that off? It's a nightmare down there. I don't know if that whole thing has flooded at one time. We'd never be able to maintain it.
It's flooded several times.
Floods all the time. Traffic down there is a nightmare. Deets, I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's on a weekend, if you're not there by 8 o'clock in the morning, you're not getting a parking spot. What's
All
that?
them
Yeah,
dang-
Mine also.
All them dang fishermen coming down there and clogging it up.
Not using our parking space, sir.
That'd be a fishing ensuite, wouldn't it?
Any more for parks?
No, I just wanted to mention that one thing, just because it came up today.
Okay.
I mean, do you
They
want to go?
sound like they're a lot better now than they was a few years ago, working with them.
Well, I think they're like everybody else, probably. They're short-staffed and they're trying to figure out how they can get the most bang for their buck. And if they could have us take over some of their maintenance on their facilities, it's a win-win for them. It's not a win for us because we'd never be able to maintain it. We struggle to keep up with what we got now.
I mean, we just reached out to them, about a week and a half ago about all the potholes, both at Pool Knobs and Hurricane Creek. You can't pull in or out of Pool Knobs due to all of the trash and potholes.
Oh, you could pull into Hurricane Creek, but if you're towing a boat, there's no guarantee it's gonna be on your trailer when you get down there to launch it.
Deeds can confirm that one. Anything else, Bruce?
No, I was just gonna say, you know, the main reason I asked Kyle to go ahead with the streets portion and the parks portion, what little we've talked about that is, you know, there's really two main funding sources for those funds, and one is impact fees, and then the rest has to come from general fund. Or, you know, bond issue, general fund, whatever it may be. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're looking at these projects to make your priorities, or, you know, look at your priorities, that, you know, this all kind of comes from the same pot of money, you know, except for the impact fees. So, you know, just between the general fund and the streets, you know, we've got, what, $180 roughly $1,000 or $1 million worth of projects that we need to fund. So,
Phyllis, where's that money you were hiding for us?
I'm saving it.
Didn't we ask her that last year and she never got back to us?
She told us she'd tell us this year.
Probably down there in Florida.
If you go to the very last page,
So, one more question, Kyle, getting back to the Hurricane Creek thing. This dollar amount and stuff here, does that include any benches along the way, any lights? Any kind of little pavilion or any of that?
no lights along it, no benches at this point. Now, that I think can be probably added. Lights, on the other hand, that's a big debate back and forth. If you light a greenway, then you're asking people to use it at nighttime, and if you use it at nighttime, then from a PD standpoint, I think that's
I got you.
an area that they don't want to do. So they usually say it's probably best to, on greenways, just sunlight, and then that way people are not using it feeling safe or feeling like it's monitored or anything like that at nighttime. So, but
Park benches along the way to sit
we can
down?
probably, I think that 1.9, yeah, you can get benches and stuff like that in.
We get
when it-
that with the doggy equipment.
One of the things that kind of was mentioned today, though, is, and I still don't know exact good figure on the fishing piers, Gary. I don't know if I think those are gonna be so specific for each one because of how long you'd have to get out to the water, where you'd want to be at, stuff like that. I'm not sure I could give you a good price on that yet. I think once they do the full design, they can come back and say, okay, well, this is, it's 1.9 will cover the trail, the parking area, but if you want to do some of these other items in the future, this is a good cost, and then we can add that into this to give you an idea of what to do at that point. But this 1.9 pretty much is just the, from what I remember, it's just the trail and the parking area. Does that sound about right, David?
Yes, sir.
Now, on the last sheet, what I took was from finance, they provide you each month with pretty much summary sheets and stuff. So I took from their financial summary as of 2/28 and listed the funds and what the balance was as of 2/28. And then, of course, we're not done with the fiscal year, so it's not completely accurate or anything. It just gives you a ballpark, though, of where we'll be. As you can tell, at the end of 23-24 fiscal year, we're going to have to do our second draw on that bond, or we're going to be negative $3 million. So we definitely need to start figuring out how much or what we're going to do on the second draw and when we do it. And of course, as you can see, water sewer fund will be negative, but you've got to add back 1.5, and of course, we didn't go over the water sewer projects, but one of the projects on there is about an $8 million project that we said we would do an assessment zone for. So once you do that back, then, but of course, we got to pay for it first.
And then we've also got somewhere in here, I don't know if it will be this year, next year, the year after. We've got roughly $2 million, don't we, from the Arbor Bridge coming in that will go towards that road project.
Yes, we will have money coming in for roads through that on top of the impact fees. So that's the other thing to keep in mind is once all these houses start getting built, you will see the impact fees coming in. And of course, that's going to be part of this budget too. Do you want to leave the impact fee where it is, or do you want to up the impact fee? That's y'all's decision. But as you can tell from these numbers, it's probably a good idea that we go up on them.
Well, do we have the fee schedule ready for this year to look at as far as a whole?
We can get that to you, yes, the current fee schedule. We've not made any changes to it at this point, but we can certainly look at any possible changes, because that would be adopted with the budget ordinance when that's approved.
Well, if memory serves, when we did the impact fees, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we did roads and parks at 50% of the recommended value. I would be of the mindset to go ahead and take those on up. I don't know, though, if we can adjust any of the other ones without a study or not. Can you comment on that?
The fire and police are maxed out at 100%, so you would have to do another study in order to increase those.
Okay. But that would be my thought, is to do those. We know the homes are coming. We know the needs are going to be there, even looking at this. So, and were you able to follow up with Craig in Murfreesboro?
I have received what they're proposing to do, which is on their next council agenda.
And is it as I'd been hearing?
I haven't had a chance to review it closely yet.
So what I'm referencing is I'd heard word that Murfreesboro is going up to $10,000 in impact fees for single-family homes. And that's a significant amount of money. Ours is currently, I believe, 36, 38.
Just for roads.
Which is almost 3 times the amount they were when they were adopted 20 years ago, 22 years ago. So we want to make sure that growth funds these additional needs that it causes. So that we don't have to go back to the taxpayers at property tax rates and keep raising those like Nashville's had to do in the past.
Hey, I went for 100%.
Yeah, so I think we should definitely look at the fee schedule, see if there's, any recommendations from staff to adjust, whether it's permits or whatnot, and see what everyone's thoughts are for the two impact fees that we can't adjust. And then is there anything we need to do, Kyle, to go ahead and create the special assessment zone so that
Yes,
it's
we'll need to do,
established whenever it's, the first homes are being pulled for? Because I think there's a time limit how long it can go for.
Yeah, we'll have to do an ordinance whenever we get that project bid out. That way we can take the bid amount and divide it up, come up with a cost. It'd be similar to the ones that, was it 01, 99? I wasn't here then, but I think that's roughly whenever the old water and assessment zone was. I think it was 01 or 99. But I think you can collect for 15 years, or the amount of the project, whichever comes sooner.
Okay.
Randolph, I remember you talking about back when we did that people would be rushing in for permits. Did that hold true?
Typically, it does. I don't know that we were just inundated with it. We managed when that occurred, but I will say this, that soon after those were adopted, I took about a 3-month leave. So I mean, I was a part of being able to, keep up with the permitting issues, but it's not like I've seen it in the past.
I want to say, if memory serves, we kind of talked about it from some of the reports that it wasn't really hitting like we thought it would. So, and that was just because most of the permits, everything had already been built, that
Right.
Planning Commission was seeing kind of a lull at that point in new residential. And now now it's full steam ahead.
I mean, it is what it is. It's another cost of doing business for the builders, but it wasn't to a point where we were just inundated with applications. Now, the implementation of a new impact fee, yeah, but an increase, maybe not so much. We managed, we worked it. We can do it again.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, sir.
I think that's all that we have from staff, unless the board has any questions, concerns, or things you'd like to see added or changed.
Well, something to think of and consider is, as far as, and this is something we're gonna kind of touch on with the nonprofits, but it's with the IDB, about giving some money for purchasing of land to develop. I know Murfreesboro did that. They purchased and developed the avenue. And you see how successful the avenue is now. So that's something to consider, is we have a lot of different properties. I believe it was Alderwoman Hobbs who had mentioned when we were discussing the stormwater building is control. As far as, can we dictate what this development will be? Well, through the IDB, that can be done. They would control it, and they can make that dictate. So that's a consideration as well. How much, and as far as, if we do it or not.
All right.
We've seen, who's controlling the screen? Is it Glenn? Glenn, Tanya? Tanya, can you go back to the very first page with the revenues? Sorry, I'm just so used to Glenn doing it. Go back up to sales tax, and you can see right there with sales tax where we have grown from 1920, again, from 10 million to now expecting 14.5. And I know we budget conservatively, but we've got BJ's opening up this year. We just had Sherman-Williams, Pop Shelf, and we have a litany of items that are being worked through for whether it's the stormwater building, whether it's Haas Musavi's property. there's several that are going to be coming online in the next year or so. So if we're wanting control and we want to be able to kind of dictate that, that is basically what we would have to do. We want that level of control.
Mayor, this also does not include the state legislation that's being proposed to restore the old funding mechanisms back, so I don't know if that'll get approved or not.
We should know that this week. The governor's
The whole what?
the historic tax revenue sharing, the governor's supplemental budget comes out this week, and this is where we passed a resolution on it a month ago.
I
The last
remember
meeting, yeah.
It's basically years ago when the state started, as far as financially not doing well and they were running a deficit, what they did was they changed the allocations for how much the cities and counties get for sales tax and how much the state gets, so the state gets more. Well, now we're at a time where the state is running significant windfalls every single year. They're building up a massive rainy day fund. And the cities and the counties are asking the state to return to that traditional allocation, because you're having areas like Rutherford County right now is discussing anywhere from a 13 to 15% property tax increase. Well, this money, this sales tax money, helps to prevent that. I mean, if you look at our budget for revenues, I mean, our property taxes was, it's estimated going to be 8.6. Well, sales taxes almost double that. So that would help to prevent and offset future property tax increases. And for us, it would significantly help. It'd be, I want to say around $700,000 was the estimate. I want to say 761. But
I remember Bruce talking.
that would help us, again, with all the various needs, because I'm sure that next year that Chief Hatcher is going to want 6 officers that are paid for by the fire department. And the fire department, I'm sure, will gainfully grant that, right?
100%.
So it's just, it helps us to prevent from going to the taxpayers. Another tool that we're going to implement this year is the special census. That can help us as well, because we know the census during the COVID years did not go boots on the ground. So we know our numbers are higher than what they predicted. And again, that's more revenue to help prevent future tax increases.
Is Phyllis staying here for that?
She says she is, yes.
What
She's
I
going to
heard.
do a lot of the door knocking herself.
I heard she was.
I think Danny said he had a vest for her.
I'm gonna have something to ride on a scooter or something, because my knees won't let me walk.
I know somebody's got a fancy golf cart.
Oh,
We've got you an electric bicycle.
Roller skates.
But that's the big thing I wanted this board to keep in mind is, if we're wanting a control, we want to sit at the table, we want to say in it, well, we're going to have to own some property that's in the corridor to do something with, and, you know, we can then dictate those terms. And we've seen other municipalities do it successfully. There's no reason why we can't do that here. Bruce, anything else besides me causing you a massive headache?
I'm just trying to think where we're gonna pay for that too, so yeah.
Taking you out of the
I don't
library
know
fund.
anything else.
Miss
Library
Donna,
fund, okay.
she says she's collecting fines for it.
No, sir, I think we're good.
Okay. Call this workshop adjourned.